So in this vlog, I wanted to touch on heat management and explore a couple of scenarios, a couple of pointers to keep in mind as you navigate heat in Battletech, especially when you start to cross that line jumping into heavies and especially assault type mechs. Now, there are some heavies and assaults that are heat efficient and you can pretty much fire everything without having to worry. But for the most part, inner sphere tech, you need to manage heat. Now, tactically on the tabletop, this is a vastly different Fritz than your mech instructor right now. On the tabletop, I can't help myself. I have to go for tabletop glory. I'm going to push the heat. I'm going to fire every gun that I have. If there's a chance to deal catastrophic damage, whether it's the alpha strike or following up with a lot of shots and then punches and kicks and close attacks, I have to go for it. You can't put that tabletop glory in front of me and not expect me to take it. So from that perspective, I do get into trouble with heat management, especially piloting my stalker, but I'm aware of what I'm getting into. Stepping back when I have to play tactically, if I'm playing a game with multiple players on each side, and I love multiple player games, then I do tend to play very, very conservative because I don't want my crazy glory tabletop play style to affect my teammates. So let's kind of condense and look at heat in the moment. Heat starts to scale, and the first way that you're affected by it is it cuts down movement and it makes things harder to hit, whether that reflects the feedback of the mech and the internal systems, whether that reflects back upon the fact that you're sitting in this mech and you're starting to cook off. But that is where we start to notice it. And Battletech is ultimately a game of modifiers. There's this polarity of I'm trying to bring the modifiers down so it's easier to accomplish something. Movement, move as fast as I can, or shooting, or close attacks, or making pilot skills so I don't fall down. And you as my opponent, you're trying to push those modifiers up. A perfect example is shooting. We start off as a base number based on the ability of the mech warrior. Well, from there, that number comes either unmodified or starts to move up based on range. Then we add further modifiers to that number. It gets higher and higher to hit based on how much did the opposing, I was going to say mech, but did the target move? How many hexes? And then we can add on some more depending on the rules that we're covering, whether it's the base rules or total warfare, where we look at terrain, cover. Now, how do we bring that down? Well, you can bring that number down by starting off as a better mech warrior, but there's also tech and situations out there that make things easier to see or make things easier to shoot as we move out. So it's this constant up and down. We see this with heat contributing to that. And likewise, we see this with movement. You have a base movement number, whether you're going to walk or run. Well, how many hexes you move depends upon, do you have to make any turns? Do you have to change facing? Do you have to navigate certain terrain that you're not going to be able to move through? Are there going to be elevation changes? Are you going to move through water? Those things change those modifiers and bring them down. When the opposite of shooting, you want them to be higher. So when we get to heat, this is the first thing you're going to notice. It's going to affect that. Now, if you're close, so if I'm a long-range mech and I'm pushing heat and I've got a small modifier to hit, that's kind of a big deal. That makes a big difference because I'm probably already shooting you, ideally, my longbow or my rifleman, my Jaeger mech, I'm shooting you at range. So I've already got a high enough number. So that number hurts. If I'm an assault mech and I'm up close to you and there's a movement modifier, penalty, I'm okay. I can push that heat. That's fine because we're now danger close. We're locked in. I've got all my guns to bear. I'm firing everything. You're firing everything. The time for a refused flank, for outflank, for fancy tactics and navigation, that's over. We're in here. We're doing this Battletech thing. We're rolling dice, and who's going to blink first? So if I have a movement penalty, is that really going to make that much of a difference? So we start to see these situations where maybe it makes a difference, maybe it doesn't make a difference. It always does make a difference, but we can push the heat. If that means I can fire off an additional brace of medium lasers or fire off some missiles or chain a PPC, I think I will take it. I think I'll take it. And especially heat on assaults that have multiple weapons, if I have redundancy, meaning if I'm firing 2 or 3 medium lasers, if it's a little harder to hit and I can bring that number down because I'm so close, will push it. Okay, so now we start to hit the medium side of the scale. And on a side note, often what you'll see in Battletech is you'll see players will put dice next to their mechs. I have these tiny little dice, and those dice will signal what the shooting penalty is, or bonus, depending on what you're looking at. It'll signal how many hexes I've moved. So this way, when we get to the shooting phase of the game, you can easily look and calculate range and then add those numbers on. It's just a way to kind of speed things up. So you'll see in Battletech aftermarket parts, so to speak, where you'll have some dice or you'll have some tokens. A great thing to do is a D20. I mean, there's Battletech and role-playing games go hand in hand. You probably have a whole sack of D20s. D20s make excellent heat trackers, but I've seen some sliding scales and some tokens and clips like that, or just kind of circle it off. But as we hit that mid-range now we got to think about things, not only depending on the mech, but what the loss of a turn is. So you're going to cook that ammo off and you're going to explode at different levels, depending on how you push it. From that perspective, if I'm an all-energy mech, it's all good. Nothing's going to go boom, boom. So you can just ignore that. That is one of the advantages of an all-energy-based mech. The counter to an all-energy-based mech is you maybe don't have the spread of LRM or SRM packs that can try to crit fish. You don't have really, really lightweight stuff like machine guns, which if you are danger close, you can crit fish for. So there is a trade-off, but generally speaking, in the heavies and assaults, yes, energy mechs are more efficient, and you ignore that aspect. You ignore that aspect of the heat chart. But now we get into shutdowns, and I'm like that. Fritz the Mech Warrior versus Fritz the Mech Commander. I'm in that Stalker. I'm pushing heat. Shutdown, boom, I'll make it. Ammo explosion, not going to happen. Boom, I'll make it. I'll just keep pushing that. I'll be attacking that, keep pushing it. But there are times that it's dangerous. You need to be aware of that. So this is now where if a mech shuts down, let's say I'll bypass the heat, or I'm an all-energy mech. If you shut down, two things happen. First, you're literally sitting there. So that is a major, major problem, especially if you're in physical attack range and there's some other aspects. Second to that is a lost turn. That is one turn that if we're talking about an assault or a heavy mech, you've made it up there. You're in position. You're firing all of those medium lasers. You're firing maybe that PPC with the modifiers. You're firing the SRM 6-packs. You're firing the autocannons. I mean, this is what you do with this mech. You are up there doing it. You're that Warhammer. You are up there danger close. You are blasting away. Everyone else is blasting away at you. You miss a turn, not only is it everyone hitting you, but you have now lost out on the momentum, the modifiers of that moving forward. So this is where we see it's not just ammo cook-off, it's also shutdown, really, really big, plus those other modifiers now starting to stack. And the challenge we need with heat is with my longbows, if I push the heat, ideally, or a support mech and they're in the back, I push the heat. I don't want to, but I could cool down a turn, and I can bring that heat down very, very fast. I'm playing my Marauder. We're staying at range until I close. I can do the PPC, 2 PPCs, 1, 2, chain it. Heat gets pushed a little bit. I can cool it down a little bit, and at least put a little bit down with the autocannon. But when we're that close, when we're locked in 3 or 4 hexes away, it takes a while to clear the heat. And what I mean by that is I'm still going to be firing. Even if I push the heat, I pass my checks, I'm good, I'm dealing damage. Now I'm going to scale it back. I'm firing less weapons, so I have something to fire. I can't not fire for one entire turn. That's missed momentum. This gets into the place now where I'm not going to be able to clear heat as fast. So it piles up very, very fast. And even if you are not heat conservative and you're willing to roll those dice, any dice-based game, I'm ready to do it. I'm totally chaotic neutral. I'll gamble it all the way. I mean, that's why I love Talisman and other type games. We'll roll it. We'll do it. But in exploring it, realizing even if you are going to push that heat, it goes up much, much quicker than it comes down, especially when you've got 3 other mechs, 2, 3, 4 hexes away, closing, and you're right in the middle of what makes Battletech awesome.